Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to do a 50-minute presentation with time for Q&A at the end. You will be eligible for SHRM credit and HRCI credit, one credit for participating in our session today. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit about what employers are thinking about and planning for 2021. So 2020 is in our rearview mirror. And I don't know about you, but I thought, I don't know why, that when the clock struck 12 on January 1st, we were going to be into a new year and everything was going to be so much better. And now we're entering 2021 with a little bit more trepidation than we thought we would, with things happening in the world and in the United States. But today we're going to focus on healthcare. We're going to focus on kind of the, initially the state of the market. We're going to talk a little bit about some really positive, exciting things that are happening in the marketplace that are going to help us manage our benefits and our cost. So we're excited today for a very positive session. Mental health is on the top of everybody's focus for 2021. You know, when you look back on where we were in the end of 2019, if you can remember a year ago, a little over a year ago, healthcare benefits folks were focused on adding benefits and throwing every benefit they could, everything but the kitchen sink at employees, because we were in a zero unemployment world. And we were looking at recruiting and attracting new talent and retaining our good talent in an almost zero unemployment world. That quickly changed when we entered 2020. The pandemic hit, and in February and March, we were dealing with unprecedented change in the United States. And if you look at the surveys, the Oliver Wyman survey and some of the other surveys, Oliver Wyman is our sister company along with Mercer, they did a lot of surveys on productivity. And Americans in all of the survey were logging between 2 and 3 extra hours a day at their computers, working a little bit longer. Some of that was due to the lack of a commute, right, to and from the office. We didn't have to get up and shower and get dressed and get in the car. And the other thing is at 5 o'clock, there was no place to go. Everything was kind of shut down. So that extra work time and productivity kind of slithered away in the summertime of 2020. And when you look at the surveys that took place, mid-summer to the end of summer, those statistics change drastically, which is something that employers need to pay attention to. So we started slipping on the productivity side, and we started to see a lot of mental health issues. The number one reason that people were calling into telemedicine predominantly was the mental health and depression categories were the categories we were seeing. And productivity has still been on the decline, right, moving into 2021. So those two things, mental health focus and productivity absence management, we're going to do a full hour session in 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to send out an invite with our specialists. So we have a specialty group at Tryon that does absence management and productivity and paid leave and disability and life and disability. So they're going to do a session with me talking a little bit about the cost of absenteeism and the 18 states with different statutory regulations and the compliance complexity for our HR staff trying to manage the benefits when you have people in multiple states. So stay tuned for that invite. We're excited to present that session. So today we're going to talk a little bit about initially the state of the market. We're going to talk about pharmacy, because pharmacy and large claims are still driving our cost in 2021. Those are pretty much the three things that we need to be focused on in Q1 is data analytics, understanding our utilization data from 2020 so that we can strategically plan clinical programs around those issues or problems that we're trying to solve for. And then pharmacy and large claimants. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. Today's session is going to be a little bit different than the sessions that we've had in the past. We're not going to have any slides. We're not going to do PowerPoints. I think we're all kind of Zoomed and PowerPoint, really overwhelmed with the amount of information and presentations that we're getting. So we want you to sit back and relax, grab your lunch. And let's take a look at what the tech industry is bringing to the forefront for healthcare. It's very exciting. And with the wearables and some of the new devices, it's going to help us add to the basket of tricks that we can roll out in our clinical programs and our value-based plan designs as a means to reach and engage our employees that are the sickest in our population so that we can manage those high claimants and those pharmacy claims. So let's see what the tech industry has in store for us in 2021.
As the big four tech companies accelerate into the healthcare space, Amazon is not so quietly emerging as the biggest disruptive force. In just a few years, the e-commerce giant has made major strides in healthcare through a series of partnerships, new launches, and acquisitions. Among them are Haven, a joint venture formed to tackle rising healthcare costs; Zelf, a digital prescribing and analytics platform; Change Healthcare, a cloud-based claims and payments network; and PillPack, the full-service pharmacy that Amazon acquired for $753 million. Unquestionably, Amazon's ambitions are far-reaching. But just how far? Many of the traditional healthcare players aren't waiting to find out. Following its $69 billion merger with Aetna, CVS Health has undertaken its own closely watched digital health and wellness transformation effort. By leveraging its newfound mountain of data, CVS Health hopes to create a holistic view of the customer, determine how to best communicate with the customer, and improve clinical outcomes. Perhaps its most ambitious initiative is the transformation of hundreds of CVS drugstores into health hubs. Billed as your neighborhood place for wellness, the Health Hub ecosystem uses analytics to create a consumer-centric approach to medical cost management, customer retention and acquisition, and lifetime value generation. Ultimately, the question remains, can legacy players like CVS succeed at digital transformation? Or will deep pockets and grand ambitions enable tech giants like Amazon to dominate healthcare? Given the whirlwind of changes in the sector, it promises to be a battleground for some time to come.
I don't know about you, but that was very exciting. I did want to just kind of add an update to that. So Amazon, that was teaming up with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan Chase to create a new company in healthcare for their employees called Haven, has put the kibosh on it. So last week, beginning of the new year, we were all surprised to hear that Amazon was not running down that path any longer, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they have something else up their sleeves. So Amazon is now a pharmacy in all 50 states. And with Amazon Prime, you can get your medication delivered to your house at no cost very quickly. So interesting that they're making a move into healthcare, in a different way than they had been even a year ago. I think that there's more to come and we'll see more from them. But one of the other things that we're going to talk about today is pharmacy. So pharmacy, we spend a lot of time talking about pharmacy because it's the fastest growing piece of trend. So when you look at your medical and your pharmacy, 50%, so 50 cents on every dollar is attributable to pharmacy and drug spend. So we want to spend a lot of time there because there's a big tsunami coming in 2021 and 2022 that employers really need to understand. So they're gene therapies. We talk about pharmacogenomics a lot. And I know that there's some confusion about what is a pharmacogenomic, what does it do, what is the definition of that? And HR really needs to understand it. Benefits managers need to understand what a pharmacogenomic is because there's 50 to 60 of these gene therapies in the pipeline for 2021 and 2022 that are going to be over $1 million in cost. So we're managing large claimants as our number one issue, along with our chronic illnesses. So when you look at heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, those are the top conditions of our high claimants. And with all of those conditions go along with expensive medications. So these gene therapies on top of that are really something that we need to dig into and understand. So we're going to spend a few minutes talking about what is a pharmacogenomic. So I sought out and found a very good video that it kind of explains how they decoded the human genome, right? About 10, 11 years ago, two female scientists came up with the decoding of the human genome. And then what they did was they went in and looked at certain illnesses and certain disease categories that Americans have suffered for decades, for generations, and tried to identify the genome sequencing and the incorrect lettering in their genome. And then potentially now we have gene therapy to correct that lettering. So let's take a quick look at what pharmacogenomics are. So it's the drugs, right? The pharmaceuticals that understand your human genome and how your genome and genetic makeup predispose you for your reaction to drugs, whether they're effective, whether they're not effective, what the dosage is. A really good example is blood thinners. In the past, when you've been put on a blood thinner, maybe for a blood clot or an accident, they had to tinker with it and take a lot of time in trying to figure out how your body metabolized that drug so that if they gave you too much, you could bleed to death. And if they gave you too little, the blood clot might be the cause of further damage to the body. So one of the things that genomic testing does is it's a mouth swab where they can look at your genomic testing and figure out how quickly you metabolize drugs. We're not going to get too far into the weeds and make you become all pharmacists, but it is something that we do have to be aware of because these cutting edge technologies that are come with a big price tag, but of course they solve debilitating diseases. So let's take a quick look at this video that explains it probably better than I can.
The right medication can save a life, but a medication that works well for other people might not work for you and may result in significant side effects. Pharmacogenomics is the study of how our genes affect the way our bodies respond to medications. Because of our genetic makeup, some people's bodies break down certain medications too slowly. The medication builds up in the body, causing severe side effects. Other people's bodies break down the same medication too quickly, eliminating it before it has a chance to work at effective levels. Yet others may be at risk for having significant, sometimes life-threatening side effects from a medication. Pharmacogenomic testing can identify variations in specific genes related to metabolizing or clearing certain medications from the body. Using this information, doctors can examine your genetic profile to predict whether a medication is likely to help you or hurt you before you even take it. The goal of pharmacogenomics is to provide the right drug for the right patient at the right dose. For example, if you have high cholesterol, your doctor might prescribe one of many statin medications to lower your risk of a heart attack. But these drugs can also have significant side effects. Finding that out can be expensive, time-consuming, and could delay receiving proper treatment. Pharmacogenomic testing is now available to show how your body is likely to respond to a certain statin. That may help your doctor prescribe the right dose of that medication, or even a different medication, to get the best results for you. Today, pharmacogenomic testing is available, which can help predict how an individual may process and metabolize hundreds of different medications, including those used to treat heart disease, high blood pressure, psychiatric disorders, pain, cancer, and many other conditions. Researchers are continuing to identify more genetic variations that affect the body's response to specific medications. Knowledge that is transforming the practice of healthcare by incorporating this information into your routine clinical practice.
Come with us to a new world, deeper than the ocean, as unfathomable as the universe, a world that doesn't exist outside you, but within you, where breakthrough science is replacing chemotherapy with immunotherapy, where we can now attack the causes of disease, not just the symptoms, where medicines once produced for all are now designed to fit you. Today, 140,000 biopharmaceutical researchers go boldly to discover treatments and cures unimaginable 10 years ago and are on the verge of more tomorrow.
Wow. So you can see how the pharmacogenomics, the understanding of your human genome, how that can help physicians and doctors prescribe medication that is the right dose at the right place and at the right price for employers. So now we're going to move into talking about the genomic treatments. So there's been a lot in the news about genomic treatments because Zolgensma captured our attention over a year ago with the cure for muscular atrophy or muscular dystrophy. So when I was growing up, we used to watch the Jerry Lewis telethon, and now they've actually come up with, a cure for that debilitating disease. So Zolgensma is $2.4 million, and it's a gene therapy where it's actually going into a child under 12 months, right? So under 1 year old. And it's actually correcting the incorrect genetic lettering in their DNA, which will enable them, it's the difference between somebody being confined to a wheelchair for their entire life and walking again. So it's really exciting to see the breakthroughs. There's one coming that is for hemophiliacs. There was a gene therapy for a retinopathy, so an eye disease. And we're going to see many, many more. Like I said, there's 40 to 50, maybe even 60 in the pipeline for FDA approval in the next 2 years. And while they're $1 million drugs, they're life-altering for people that suffer from these debilitating diseases. The trick is how are employers going to afford them, right? So we look at our employee-sponsored medical plans. Self-insured employers are grappling with, if many more of these $1 million pharmacogenomics or gene therapies come through, how am I going to afford them? So we're trying to take the first step in really understanding what they do. And I found another video. Many of you have maybe seen it before. It was done by Time Magazine, Time Health. And it talks about CRISPR gene editing. And this is the gene therapy theory behind these drugs that are coming to the forefront. And I wanted to share it with you because it does a really good job explaining how CRISPR gene editing goes through and corrects the incorrect lettering. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't just cure the disease for the person suffering from it, but potentially their offspring. So it cures the incorrect genomic lettering for future generations so that we're basically eradicating some of these diseases that we've been treating for years and years and years. Decades. So let's take a minute to listen to the video about CRISPR gene editing to really understand these new genomic therapies.
To understand CRISPR gene editing, let's start with what is DNA? Handed down from generation to generation, every cell in your body carries a copy of your genetic code called your genome. It's made up of DNA. It's like a book that describes you, a book made up of 3 billion letters arranged in different sequences that make up DNA words. These words can influence the traits that you take on: athletic, intelligent, gifted. Recently, computers have deciphered the entire human genome and have identified genetic mutations behind diseases that currently have no cure. With CRISPR, we can edit DNA. CRISPR is a man-made molecule that can be programmed to find mutated or diseased DNA. It's also equipped with a pair of molecular scissors. So once CRISPR finds its target DNA, it can snip that section from the genome. Sometimes the body can repair itself. Other times, scientists can patch it with corrected letters. If this happens in egg, sperm, or embryonic cells, the changes will be permanent and passed on to future generations. CRISPR is already showing promise. It's being used to cut out the HIV virus, eliminate Huntington's disease from the brain, and even alter a mosquito's genome so it's less likely to spread malaria and Zika. CRISPR could lead to a new world of treatments, curing diseases and even eliminating them, so future generations won't ever have to suffer from them again.
So I hope you found that video as helpful as I did. I think it was a really simple way to understand genomic editing, these gene therapies. I've watched that video more than a dozen times, and it just is so simple and easy to understand. So feel free to share it. You can Google CRISPR gene editing under Time Magazine, and that will pop up online. The next kind of thought that we're going to be talking about that's so critically important for HR in the first quarter of any year and planning is really understanding your data. One of the things that we've done at Tryon is we have come up with a data analytics unit. So we have a staff of over 30 people that work for Marsh and in a division called PATH. It's Plan Analytics for Total Health. And it really, I'm going to let Dr. Maston take over from here for a minute and explain what his unit does and the importance of understanding your data. So really, when you're a self-insured employer, and most self-insured employers have carved out pharmacy and gone directly to a PBM for the pharmacy benefits, you have to have a data analytics repository to pull all of that data back together so that you can make sense of what's driving your cost and build a strategy. So we typically do those meetings with understanding the data and using calendar year end 2020. And because of the pandemic, I would encourage you to use 24 months of data. So really going back to 2019, when we were all back at it in a normal environment where we're going to and from work and receiving services. Because in 2020, remember, we're going to have like a little anomaly in the data because elective surgeries were canceled, people put off preventive screenings, and people just didn't go to the doctor for routine things the way that we have in the past. So looking at 24 months worth of data, prescription drug utilization stayed pretty the same as 2019. We didn't see a dip in utilization on the pharmacy side as much as we did on the medical side. But we're looking at 24 months of utilization and really looking at what are our top cost drivers? What are we trying to solve for? My bet is that when you look at your data, it's going to be heart disease as a chronic illness, diabetes, and cancer are our top three that we're trying to solve for. But Monty Maston is our medical director at Tryon, Marsh & McLennan Agency, and he is going to do a great job explaining his practice and what they do for us. And Monty, I have to give him a little shot in the arm and a little extra credit. He actually participated voluntarily in the COVID-19 vaccination clinical trials. So he was vaccinated and purposefully exposed to COVID when they were trying to figure out whether it was 1 dose, 2 dose, and what the dosage was. So really a large amount of gratitude goes out to him for participating and putting himself at risk for the rest of Americans to try to get that vaccine to market as soon as possible. So thank you, Dr. Maston. And we're going to let him explain PATH and a little bit about what the data analytics unit does for employers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Monty Maston, and I'm the Chief Medical Officer with Marsh & McLennan Agency. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm honored to lead our clinical consulting and data analytics team known as PATH, or Planning and Analytics for Total Health. The PATH team consists of 30 individuals across the country. We're a team of physicians, registered nurses, data analysts, and health and well-being experts. And currently we support nearly 300 self-funded employer clients across the country. These groups range in size from a couple hundred of employees at the small end to nearly 30,000 on the top end. And all industry sectors are represented. The one thing that we hear consistently as we meet with HR and finance professionals at these clients is that they're either getting no data at all from their medical or vendor partners, which is a huge problem in itself, or they're getting too much data. They get an 80 or 90-page deck, which is full of numbers. It's not insightful. It's not telling them what's going on with the utilization or cost trends. It's not giving them insights into their employee health. And more importantly, the solutions that these vendors or partners bring to the table based on the data are neither innovative nor prescriptive. So we have built at Marsh & McLennan Agency what we feel is a best-in-class clinical consulting and analytics solution for the mid-market. Each PATH client has a physician to oversee the medical strategy, a registered nurse, a data analyst, and a health and well-being expert. And we work with a state-of-the-art analytics platform called Artemis Health. We have embedded in the various MMA hubs a registered nurse. And that is important because the registered nurses have insights into the local business climate. They know the key healthcare providers. They know if the American Cancer Society is doing something in that market that may be a benefit to our employer clients. So Artemis Health, as I mentioned, is a great partner. They're a state-of-the-art analytics warehouse. They are currently one of the few remaining analytics data warehouses that is solely dedicated to employee benefits. Now, when you think about it, historically, the finance and HR teams at an employer group have played with only three types of data: medical and pharmacy and eligibility. But the average Artemis client takes in 8 to 9 data feeds. So it goes well beyond those three to take in things like biometrics, laboratory, chronic condition management programs, telemedicine utilization, but even more interesting things like absence and disability data, workers' compensation, and financial information like 401k retirement plan contributions. All these data points allow us to tell a more complete picture about why your employees are engaging in healthcare, or more importantly, why they're not. So we take unlimited data feeds into the Artemis platform. Our clinical consultants look at the data, and then they provide insights and work with the local MMA teams, whether it's helping with stop loss or medical carrier renewals, looking at ways to improve telemedicine utilization or medication adherence, helping assess the feasibility of an on-site clinic, or if you have one that's been up and running, is it providing value in reducing costs and improving health? Chronic condition management assessments. There are a number of ways that we can help you improve your bottom line. So I'm excited about what the PATH team has to offer. I would love to have the opportunity to have a further discussion with you about how we can help you, again, reduce your costs and improve employee health. Thank you and have a great day.
So one of the things that we're going to leave you with today is a small, quick little video from Marsh, our parent company. So Tryon is a division of Marsh & McLennan Companies. We're sister companies with Mercer, sister companies with Guy Carpenter and Oliver Wyman. And they do an annual global risk report. So I'm going to turn it over to our sister company consultants that are going to kind of give you an overview in less than 2 minutes of the 2021 Global Risk Survey results. I thought it would be interesting to kind of end on this note because that kind of wraps up all of what we've just talked about in healthcare benefits, wrapped into all of the societal risks and issues that employers should be aware of and thinking about as we manage our business. So thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy this final video, and please join us in the next couple of podcasts and videos that we're going to be doing, where we're going to bring to you some new ideas that you can be thinking about in your strategies for 2021, and that big CE credit webinar that we're going to be doing with the absence management life and disability practice unit in a few weeks. So stay tuned. Thanks so much and Happy New Year.
The Global Risks Report is produced annually by the World Economic Forum with the support of Marsh McLennan and other partners. There are two key messages in this year's report. We're facing a still unknown and very complex fallout from COVID-19. The report reflects on the pandemic, which has significantly impacted our lives, livelihoods, and the health of global economies and societies, and highlights the enormous structural challenges facing governments, the private sector, and society. It also explores the acceleration and exacerbation of critical global risks affecting businesses and society, such as digital dependency, civil unrest, and political interventions, with narrowing opportunities to take action on many of them. The report further highlights how incredibly difficult it is to handle these risks alone. The pandemic has exposed long-standing vulnerabilities and is exacerbating many risks by increasing our exposure to them, for example cyber, and diverting critical attention, finance, and effort away from the mitigation of others, such as climate. It's also complicating responses to known reoccurring risks, such as extreme weather events, and placing huge financial pressures on individuals, businesses, and governments. Rapid digitalization and remote working saw exponential increases in cyber exposure and more complex and potentially less secure networks. In this year's survey, failure of cybersecurity measures was considered a top short-term risk. Our ability to better anticipate and address emerging threats will require greater resilience, contingent upon setting new expectations, creating new interactions, and engaging in new public and private sector partnerships. The Global Risks Report is a call to action. It has the power to trigger conversations that catalyze governments, businesses, and other multilateral stakeholders to work together creatively to solve the risks we face in our own countries and around the world.